Sonic and fighting games are two things that most people would expect to go together just like a nice peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The problem is though, we got the PB and the J, but the sandwich still isn't complete. Why, you may ask? Well, dear viewer, that is because neither of the two official Sonic fighting games we've gotten have had the chance to be fully realized in my opinion. Sonic the Fighters is a clone of Fighting Vipers, an old Sega, fighting game, and Sonic Battle is a great time. But when looking past the nostalgia, it's a pseudo-platform fighter stuck on 2-decade-old hardware. I'm looking at you, NSO, please bring Battle back. Sit back and relax though, because as someone who's competed in a multitude of tourneys both on and offline in a variety of games, I'm going to craft the perfect Sonic fighting game that you've been looking for. Let's get this show on the road. Before we get to the exciting stuff like the character roster, DLC, etc., we must first decide on what type of fighting game we're going to use as the basis for this experiment. For the uninitiated, fighting games can take on a multitude of subgenres depending on the visions of their creator. I'll be breaking down 4 genres that this Sonic game could possibly fit into, and then picking them apart until we have one winner to go with. Cool? Cool. So, for these subgenres, we have platform fighters like Super Smash Bros., Rivals of Aether, and MultiVersus, tag fighters such as the ever upcoming 2XKO, which is Riot's fighting game, the Marvel vs. Capcom series, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. Next up are the fundies / fundamental fighting games like Street Fighter and Guilty Gear, which put an emphasis on general fighting game knowledge. Lastly, these are what I'm deeming as specialty games, quote unquote, and this will include strictly KOF 15 as the example, since that is the most recent KOF game that had a huge influx of first-timers due to the simpler controls. Although I'm a huge Tekken guy, I didn't include that franchise as a possibility, as the nature of 3D fighters is such a high quality and it takes a lot of time and patience to learn. The goal of this next Sonic fighting game is to have it accessible to everyone, as this would be a good entry-level outing for maybe younger kids who want something to dip their toes into when it comes to the FGC world. Having your favorite characters playable in a whole new game genre opens up your worldview, and if you're curious about what I mean by this, check out my video on the Sonic Storybook RPG sequel. Anywho, the first subgenre that I'm axing is platform fighters. Don't get me wrong, this isn't because I don't believe that Sonic couldn't handle being a plat fighter, but there's already a market for that taken up by Super Smash Bros., in which Sonic is a guest. Smash Bros. Sonic, although I don't agree with his moveset, is a great stand-in for the Hedgehog's appearance in that genre, and I'm sure it's done wonders for getting people over into Sonic Teams games, so that can stay as is. This next omission was very difficult for me to make, since this series has been around in my life for the better part of a decade. The game type in question is KOF, aka King of Fighters. I know that this game specifically is huge in areas outside of the US, but the style of KOF, for those who don't know, it's a 3v3 title, but not in the traditional sense. You pick 3 characters, a point, a middle, and an anchor, who all have their own health bar and moves unique to them. One character gets taken out, you switch on over to the next, but the positions of each opponent start from the middle once again. First person to knock the other team completely out, thus winning the rounds, wins the game. The point of those 3 characters is to have each one in a position that best fits them. So, if you have a character that can dish out damage with very little to no special meter, they should go first as points. A character that needs some special meter to do damage, they are your middle. And one character that needs all the special meter that they can get their hands on to do big damage, that's your anchor, aka last character. Learning 3 characters is a lot for anyone, but KOF does a good job at realizing this and having those isolated 1v1s. However, as fun as it would be, I don't think that this would fit our Hedgehogs franchise practically if we want everyone to hop right in. Being at the final 2 is not fun, since both of these genres are what got me into fighting games in the first place. Between the fundamentals and the tag fighters, I will unfortunately have to get rid of the fundamentals. Now, before things get too out of hand, I would like to explain a bit more about the decision. Inherently, tag fighters are deemed as a lot more fun, goofy, and usually allow people to pull off insane looking combos that are fun to show off. Fundamentals games like Street Fighter or Guilty Gear can absolutely 100% achieve this outcome too, but it takes a lot more time to learn and master. This isn't me stating that I want the Sonic fighting game to be easy per se, but as I mentioned in the beginning, it has to appeal to a broad audience. I know this is bad, but it'd be the only way for the game to get made in my eyes, and if anyone has a rebuttal as to why maybe it shouldn't, then I'm all for a discussion. As for the tag fighter specifics, well, we'd have to go back and look at what Sonic the Hedgehog is all about. The act of learning your environment in order to get faster times as a direct result of you being able to react to the upcoming potential threats. that perfectly encompasses what this fighting game should play like. At first, the game is going to feel heavy. You're going to drop combos. You're going to have missed inputs on specials. As time progresses, however, your understanding of what your character can do improves, and so does your combo game. I firmly believe that this hypothetical game should play as a good on the ground experience where you can still do all the cool things that they would show off in the trailer, with air combos being something achievable only after you put in some work to teach yourself about the ins and outs of your character choices. Now that we got all the hard stuff out the way, it's time to have some fun with this thing. I usually make you guys wait for the characters and unveil them one by one, but we're hopping right into who's making the cut. You ready? Boom. Base roster is 18 fighters, all canon, some from IDW, others from the games. A healthy mix if I do say so myself. After creating that video last week about the IDW characters being canon, I can finally start to include them in these what if videos a lot more frequently, so I'm excited. I won't be going into detail about everyone since there are quite a few references out there for what these characters can do, but very quickly let's cover what archetypes I think that they fall into. To start us off, I'll go over said archetypes and then filter everyone here based on my knowledge of the series. For archetypes, we have Shotos. These are the standard all-arounders that can do almost everything well, but do get outclassed by characters that excel in a certain field more than they do. Rushdowns. As the name implies, these are characters that want to get in and hit as big as a combo as possible on you before you can appropriately react. Glass cannons, they are similar to rushdowns but more tools at their disposal, and if they mess up more than once, they'll explode and lose the match. Puppet characters, their main focus is to use an alternate body to perform all types of their best combos and attacks, and they usually only have one or two get off me tools in case the opponent gets too close to the main body. Ranged fighters, similar to puppet characters in a sense, but have a bit longer range and their get off me tools are a bit weaker and won't guarantee the opponent respects them. Grapplers, a fan favorite, typically tankier than most of the cast and can easily blow you up with command grabs if you don't learn to tech tricky grabs properly. Specialist, characters that have unique attributes or abilities that no one else in the game has, and tend to be a bit annoying. This will make a bit more sense later. There's room for more archetypes, but for now we have to reveal which characters are in each one that we currently have. If you take a look up at the screen, you'll see the breakdown and allow me to explain why as you browse through the selections. Our Shotos are Shadow, Blaze, and Knuckles, as they've all been shown to have proficiency in hand-to-hand combat in some practice or another. Shadow in Dark Beginnings, Knuckles in the Frontiers prologue and other scenarios, and Blaze I'm sure has turned her formal royal training into a personalized fighting style. Rushdowns include Sonic, Surge, and Metal Sonic, as speed is everything to them. Sonic and Metal Sonic are obvious of course, but I included Surge simply because of her lightning attributes. Glass cannons have Rouge, Lanolin, and Tails, as each of them feels to me as though their fighting potential is through the roof, and Rouge has even proven this on multiple occasions. For the other two, if fully realized, could easily take on any of the cast in this fighting game. For puppet characters, we have Cream. She'd be in the background, sorta like the Pokemon trainer in Smash Bros, using Germo as a conduit and only joining in for get off me attacks and ultimate moves. This way, I think Sonic Team or whoever they would outsource the game to would allow the Tiny Rabbit to take part in the fights. Ranged characters are going to host both Silver and Kit, with the two using their Psychokinesis and Water Tank respectively to make sure that no one can get in close. Grapplers, we'd use Omega, Vector, and Tangle. Both Vector and Tangle have been seen multiple times carrying others, and Omega technically as well if we look at Sonic Heroes. I think it'd be funny to see the robot casually pick up Sonic and body slam him like Potemkin from Guilty Gear. Lastly, there are the Specialist, Rough and Tumble, Whisper, and Amy, all of which having a distinct mechanic at their disposal. For Rough and Tumble, using 1 meter of their special gauge, they could swap between the two and become either a grappler or a rushdown. Whisper is obvious, using her different wisp to have an answer for a variety of situations, and Amy, utilizing her hammer to gain some extra attack range, would make her a glass cannon / ranged fighter hybrid. Let me know if you guys think I got all these characterizations right, or if you do something completely different down in the comments. I'll be waiting to hear everyone's thoughts on the matter. For this entry, I'm thinking a 2v2 styled game where you're able to switch between characters on the fly and select which assist you'd want them to have. Certain pairings will have team ultimate attacks that use 4 out of the 5 available bars of the special meter, with each individual having 2 level 1s and a singular level 3 that they can also pull out. Well, why have the team trios if there's only going to be 2 people to each team? You're probably asking yourself. Well, that goes back to what I stated earlier about 3 characters possibly being too much for people to learn. To circumvent this, we can add in that if you use all 5 bars of your special meter, should you have, for example, 2/3 of Team Dark, the entire team will be called out for their Team Blast cinematic attack. That's pretty fair, no? Of course, you'd have cosmetics to choose from and can even customize your colors for the cast like many fighting games nowadays have, and that'd really make the experience more personal for players. We have to ask ourselves now, though, why exactly are all these anthropomorphic animals fighting? For most fighting games, the consensus is that the story doesn't matter all that much. You have exceptions, such as the aforementioned Tekken and Guilty Gear series, but the story most commonly is not at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. As this may be the case, I figured that we could have a bit more fun super quickly with a synopsis of why all the teams and fighters have gathered. Let's begin. For starters, we can stick with the usual tournament arc shenanigans that Sonic Team has had before, and this is the simplest one to go with as well. Eggman is hosting a fighting tournament charity event where he exclaims that the best team will walk away with all of the Chaos Emeralds, and a portion of any monetary proceeds will go to the Chao Foundation of their choosing should they be the ones victorious. Of course, this is a ruse that most of our teams see through, but decide to take part in anyway since there are Chaos Emeralds on the line. Team Sonic, consisting of their usual members, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, are there to make sure the emeralds can't be used for evil. Team Dark, hosting Shadow, Rouge, and Omega are there, as Gun requested they retrieve the emeralds for safe government keeping, and yes, I know Shadow isn't a part of Gun, but he decided to help out Rouge as a favor in this game. Team Rose, although missing Big, technically has General now, and they consist of Amy and Cream as well. Let's say that Cream heard about the Chao Foundation donations, hence why she wanted to join so badly and Amy couldn't resist. The Diamond Cutters can be present since Tangle somehow manages to convince Lanolin and Whisper to join in and beat the bad guys. Just to note, this is before they know who the other teams are. Silver and Blaze happen to become a team as they each just barely make it to the registration due to their travel requirements from the future and Soul Dimension respectively. Surge is just looking for an excuse to beat Sonic up and get Paul's along, of course. As for Vector, we can say that he's a non-participant in the story, as Eggman hired the Chaotix as security to up his credibility of this being a legitimate event. Charmy is the only one with Vector though, as secretly, the Croc has SPO on a mission to uncover if Eggman was genuinely telling the truth. The ninja will be around later though. Lastly, Eggman declares that he too will be a participant to further help his claim of this being a charity event by putting up a Chaos Emerald and sending in Metal Sonic and Rough and Tumble in his stead for now. Ultimately, we find out that of course, Eggy was lying and in the process somehow summons a fighting deity that required ample amounts of essence gathered in one area to awaken. Pretty normal stuff for a Tuesday. The canon team of the franchise, Team Sonic, is tasked with stopping the threat, but you'd be able to fight the boss as whoever in the standard arcade mode after going through various matches beforehand. Now that that's been covered, should we get into some DLC? I'll just do the first season, which would have 4 characters. These characters would add Team Ultimates and Team Blast cinematics, much like the base roster, but their official partner may not be in the game just yet. During the first season, there'd have to be people that can really sell the idea of a season pass. So, for one, we'd have our 4th specialist in the game, Mimic the Octopus, who for his level 3 ultimate could turn into whatever character he's facing at the moment. Almost every fighting game has a person who can copy abilities, and I think it fits him well. He could have a reluctant team ultimate with Whisper and one with Rough and Tumble as well. After him, we'd get SPO for the full Chaotix crew, and he'd be a rushdown character. Of course, having a Team Ultimate and Team Blast cinematic with Vector. I'll need everyone to pretend that this game isn't canon for the next one, but I'd also like to include Starline, specifically as a puppet character. See, with the ability that he has, hypnotizing folks is easy. He can be one of those characters that uses nameless individuals, or rather zombies, since that's the state that they'd be in, to do his bidding in the match. Sort of like Whisper and Mimic's reluctant team up, you can match Starline with either Kit or Surge and have their 5-bar Team Blast cinematic be the Doctor hypnotizing the 2 test subjects into unleashing their full latent potential. Lastly, the good Dr. Eggman would make his appearance and round out the roster so that almost all of the archetypes have 3 to 4 reps, with him being the final ranged fighter as well. He'd of course have a Team Ultimate and Team Blast cinematic with Metal Sonic, and could maybe even have something when partnered up with our Blue Blur himself. Now I ask though, who would you add in as DLC? I touched on it a bit already, but outside of the story mode, you'd have the traditional arcade mode with a series of battles in their own self-contained stories. The obvious multiplayer mode is here as well, but to make things more awesome, I say that anywhere from 2 to 4 players can join in on the tag fun and get some serious combo clips going. Stages would host a vast array of areas from Sonic's history, not Green Hill Zone, like Crisis City, the Ark, and maybe even revamping stages from Sonic Battle like Battle Highway or Club Rouge. That about covers everything I wanted to include, but feel free to let me know about your personal perfect Sonic game and what that looks like, for the DLC, for the stages, and base roster. Did I get all of those right by including the IDW characters since they're canon now? And speaking of which, if you're curious about whether IDW being canon is a good thing or not, check out this video on what my answer is. I'll see you all in the next one.